Hola amigos, bienvenidos. Welcome to Como Digo's Spanish podcast. This is your host, AT, and with me, Triple G.
Hi audience, and hi AT.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, it's fine, thank you. We'll go over a few conversations that you might have on your vacation, so here's the first one.
Disculpe, ¿cuánto cuesta el tour?
El tour hacia el centro y el museo cuesta 500 pesos.
Déjeme consultarlo con mis acompañantes.
Sí, claro. Usted me avisa.
Sí, vamos a tomar el tour. Let's go over our first conversation. The initial phrase is, disculpe, ¿cuánto cuesta el tour? And this means, excuse me, how much is the tour? So basically, you can use this phrase with pretty much any noun that you want to know the price of. Let's say, disculpe, ¿cuánto cuesta esta pluma? Excuse me, how much is this pen?
Yeah, like when you're asking for a souvenir or something like that, you can say, ¿cuánto cuesta el sombrero? Which means, how much does the hat cost?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. You can use it with pretty much anything.
Yeah. Well, now the next phrase is, el tour hacia el centro y el museo cuesta 500 pesos. Which means the downtown and museum tour is 500 pesos. You guys can check our videos on the YouTube channel. There's a playlist called Learn Spanish, so that you can get more vocabulary on places and numbers.
Déjeme consultarlo con mis acompañantes. This phrase means, let me check that with my companions. Well, if you're on your own, you can change it into, déjeme pensarlo. And that means, let me think about it. So yeah, you can do that to give yourself some time.
Then we have, sí, claro. Usted me avisa. And that means, yes, of course. Let me know. Well, there isn't much to explain here.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty self-explanatory. And the last phrase says, sí vamos a tomar el tour, meaning we will take the tour. And again, if you're on your own, you just modify the vamos for voy. And you would say, sí voy a tomar el tour, which is, I will take the tour.
And that's pretty much for our first conversation. What do you say if we go again for it one more time?
All right, let's go. Disculpe, ¿cuánto cuesta el tour?
El tour hacia el centro y el museo cuesta 500 pesos.
Déjeme consultarlo con mis acompañantes.
Sí, claro. Usted me avisa.
Sí, vamos a tomar el tour. Now let's move on to the next possible situation we might encounter on our vacation. Let's listen. Disculpe, ¿dónde puedo encontrar un cajero automático?
Creo que hay uno dentro de ese supermercado.
Muchas gracias.
De nada.
Well, conversation 2 is a short one. The first phrase says, disculpe, ¿dónde puedo encontrar un cajero automático? Which means, excuse me, where can I find an ATM? So the first part is the structure of your question, and then the cajero automático part, that would be ATM. So as we've said before, you can change that noun for whatever place or thing you're looking for. For example, disculpe, ¿dónde puedo encontrar una lavandería? Meaning, excuse me, where can I find a laundromat? You guys get the idea. Again, you can check our Learn Spanish playlist in our YouTube channel for extra vocabulary. We'll leave the link in the description.
The next phrase is, creo que hay uno dentro de ese supermercado. And that means I think there's one inside the supermarket. You can find an ATM in pretty much every supermarket here in Mexico. So, notice the part where the person says, creo que, which means I think. So here you know that the person isn't 100% sure about that. Instead, if he says, hay uno, what he's meaning is there's one. So he's pretty sure there's one right there.
Yeah, definitely. And then we go with the next part, which is very simple, and that's muchas gracias. You guys know that means thank you so much.
Yeah, and the last phrase is de nada, which is a polite way of saying, oh, that's okay, it's nothing.
Yeah, it's like you're welcome.
You're welcome, yeah.
Cool. So let's go over the second conversation again. Disculpe, ¿dónde puedo encontrar un cajero automático?
Creo que hay uno dentro de ese supermercado.
Muchas gracias.
De nada.
And that's it for the second conversation. So, again, guys, please subscribe to our channel. And now we're gonna go to the third possible situation you might have on your vacation. Aquí está el menú. Me avisa cuando estén listos para ordenar.
Sí, gracias.
¿Están listos para ordenar?
Sí. ¿Me da una cerveza, por favor?
Claro que sí. En un momento se la traigo. Now this conversation takes place in a restaurant.
Or a bar.
Yeah. And the first person to talk will be the waitress or waiter. And in this case, she says, Aquí está el menú. Me avisa cuando estén listos para ordenar. Which means, here's the menu. Let me know when you guys are ready to order.
Yeah, the next part of the conversation is sí, gracias, which means yes, thank you. Well, maybe you could change it for okay, thank you. And that would be like, okay, gracias.
Now, when the waitress comes back, she says, ¿Están listos para ordenar? And that means, are you guys ready to order?
Well, something that you can say when you're about to order is me da una cerveza, por favor. And that would mean, can you give me a beer, please? You can change that word cerveza for basically anything you want to order, like a coffee, you would say un café. Or maybe a soft drink, you would say una soda. If you're in the northern part of Mexico, that would be. If you're in the southern part of the country, you would say un refresco.
Yeah, absolutely. There are some differences, like the one you mentioned, between the words that we use in the northern part of Mexico and the southern part. And that's we're gonna cover that in another episode. So stay tuned, guys. Subscribe. Now, the last part is claro que sí. En un momento se la traigo, which means, of course, I'll bring it in a moment.
And that's basically just about conversation number 3. What do you say if we try it one more time?
Yes. All right. Aquí está el menú. Me avisa cuando estén listos para ordenar.
Sí, gracias.
¿Están listos para ordenar?
Sí. ¿Me da una cerveza, por favor?
Claro que sí. En un momento se la traigo. Now, let's go over conversation 4, which takes place in a bus station.
¿A qué hora sale el autobús a Tijuana?
El siguiente autobús sale a las 2 p.m.
Deme un boleto, por favor.
Voy a necesitar su identificación oficial.
Aquí tiene. Well, this first phrase is ¿a qué hora sale el autobús a Tijuana? Which means what time does the bus to Tijuana leave? So if you are like traveling in a plane, you would say avión instead of bus, autobús. You would say plane.
So that means you can change the transportation, right? So instead of saying autobús, you can change it into avión, just like you said. Or maybe if you're traveling by train, you can say tren.
Yeah. And if you're traveling like in a cruise ship, you can say crucero.
Yeah, and we also have a video on that, guys. So if you want to check that out, we'll leave the link in the description. Now, what about the place that they're going to?
Yeah, the place that you're going to can change. Like, for example, in this case, we said Tijuana. Well, you can change it to Cancún or maybe Ciudad de Mexico. And it's pretty much straightforward.
Great. Now the next phrase is El siguiente autobús sale a las 2 p.m. And that means the next bus leaves at 2 p.m. So keep in mind that the time is going to change, of course. So if you guys haven't memorized the times, we also have a video on that so that you're ready for the answer that the person gives you.
Yeah, and something you have to consider too is that maybe they're not going to say AM or PM.
Oh yes, that's
Sometimes
true.
they jump that part, and that's you have to consider that maybe it's the closest time that they're telling you. Like, for example, if you go at like 11 a.m. and they say it leaves at 2, sale a las 2, then you have to consider that it's 2 p.m., not 2 a.m. That would be like 14 hours from the time you are.
Exactly. They're just gonna drop the AM or PM part sometimes. We do that.
Sometimes, yeah. Well, the next phrase is deme un boleto, por favor. And that's give me a ticket, please. Now, maybe you're traveling with someone else and you need more tickets. That would be like dos boletos for 2 tickets or tres boletos for 3 tickets. If you need more advice on numbers, you can check out our video on the description too.
Yeah, you guys guessed it. Check our video. All right. Now the next phrase is voy a necesitar su identificación oficial. And that means I'm gonna need your ID. So here you guys can show a passport or you can show maybe a driver's license.
Yeah, and right here in Mexico we have an ID that's the voter's ID card. And if your country issues some ID like that, well, maybe you can use it too.
Yeah, that's pretty valid also.
Yeah.
So something with your photo and your full name.
Right. And the last phrase is aquí tiene. And pretty much it means here you have. And if you would like to say something, you can say that, or you can say like
Tenga.
Tenga, yeah.
Yeah, you can say tenga. That would mean exactly the same thing. So now we're started with conversation 5, which is about asking how to get somewhere.
Disculpe, ¿cómo llego al centro comercial?
¿Ve ese edificio de allá? Está justo detrás.
¿El edificio blanco?
Sí, ese.
Ah, muchas gracias. Well, phrase number 1 is disculpe, ¿cómo llego al centro comercial? That means, excuse me, how do I get to the mall? You can change this place, like for example, ¿cómo llego a la iglesia? Would be, how do I get to the church? You can change the place just by changing that last words.
Now we have, ¿ve ese edificio de allá? Está justo detrás. And that means, do you see that building over there? It's right behind it. So the first part is kind of like checking if the person
has a point of reference.
Exactly. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So if the person has a point of reference to the actual place that they're looking for, and then you just describe the location, right?
Yeah.
The person is saying, está justo detrás. It's right behind it.
Yeah. It could be another kind of relation and space, like right in front. It means justo enfrente. This time you used justo atrás. Yeah, which means right behind. But
or they could also say like al lado de, which is next to. So if you guys haven't checked our prepositions video, please check it out.
Yeah. And the next phrase is like confirmation. It's a question. He's just trying to make sure that he's watching the right place. He asks, el edificio blanco, which means the white building. In this case, you would have to change according to what you are seeing. Yeah, maybe it could be a different color of a building, or it could be like a tower, or something different.
Great. And the next phrase is sí, ese, and that means yes, that one. Or maybe you're mistaken, and the person will say, no, ese no, which is like, no, it's not that one, right? So it depends on the place you're asking about.
Yeah, it just it would change according to the conditions or the situation. And the last phrase is muchas gracias, which is, oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening to our first episode of Como Digo's Spanish podcast. We hope you liked it, and we're looking forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Give it a thumbs up, share, and subscribe.
See you next time.
Hasta luego.